Welcome to Dolby Creator Talks. This is a show about how artists use technology to tell their stories, and I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. It seems as though the movie musical is back, and today we are discussing one of the most original movie musicals I have ever seen. I'm talking about Emilia Pérez, the film that took Cannes by storm, where it won the jury prize for director Jacques Audiard, as well as a shared Best Actress award for its extraordinary ensemble cast: Zoe Saldana, Adriana Paz, Selena Gomez, and of course, Carla Sofia Gascon. This film is France's official entry for the upcoming Academy Awards, and I have a feeling you'll be hearing a lot more about it during the awards season. If you haven't seen Emilia Pérez yet, I highly recommend you check it out on Netflix, where it is now streaming in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, where it looks and sounds incredible. So I am delighted to welcome today's guests: the film's picture editor, Juliette Welfling, director of photography, Paul Guillaume, re-recording mixer and sound supervisor, Cyril Holtz, and of course, the musical's composer and songwriting team, Clément Ducol and Camille. If you read a synopsis of the film, you might ask yourself, wait, this is a musical? Or, as it's sometimes described, an opera? So I wanted to start the conversation there by asking, was this project always conceived as a musical, or was that a creative decision that was made sometime during the development process? Here's the film's editor, Juliette Welfling.
I think it was always meant to be a musical. Well, Jacques always says at first he had this idea a long time ago to make a little opera, and then for this movie he finally decided to turn it into a musical. But for some reason, I think when he started the idea, he just made a treatment, and then Camille and Clément started to work on this. But he also wrote a version of the script that was a full version of a script without songs. This was, I guess, the same year, because it was like in 2019 or something. So I guess they were both. This treatment meant to be a musical, and then also the script with no songs, because they were not done yet. I guess they were just starting,
Clément and Camille, I'd love for you to come in at this point and tell me a little bit about what was the process of collaborating with Jacques on the songs. And because, neither of you had done a musical either. So I'm kind of curious about what your approach was. How did you figure out where the song should go and thematically what they needed to accomplish?
It was a long process. I worked on a musical before with Leos Carax, but it was just technical. I was just a arranger and orchestrator. But it was very exciting and it was a long journey, because Jacques wanted us to be involved from the very beginning of the script construction. So we were just pointing out the scenes that could be used for a song in the treatment, because there was no script. So yeah, it's not only the songs, the music reflecting the story, but the music is the story. The story is built with the music. So we were just stuck in the Périgord with Thomas Bidguin, his collaborator. And in the morning, we'd sit around the table reading the treatment. In the afternoon, we'd go to the studio and work on our music. And Jacques and Thomas, at the end of the day, would come to listen. And sometimes there was a sense of jubilation, because songs are a catalyst for emotions, for narrative. It helps to make the action move forward. And yes, it's a sort of accelerator that made it possible to throw away sometimes dozens of pages of script. So yeah, it was very exciting for us and for Jacques.
Yeah, Jacques came with questions rather than directions, and he asked us if this was really meant to be musical. We had to make it come true, and to convince him in a way that it was actually meant to be, a musical, and that scenes could work as songs. So it was step by step that we worked through that. And yes, some songs work as give informations. Some songs are meant to give new informations about the characters, informations about Rita at the start, then informations about Emilia and Rita after 4 years of not seeing each other. Some songs are meant to make the unbelievable believable. Some songs just express something very deep in a very little time, and some songs are allowed us to be very political, which would have been, like in Rita's mind, almost impossible and dangerous. But thanks to songs, we could be very political.
I love the way you talk about that. And one of the things that immediately struck me about the movie that I just found so remarkable is that it seems to break all the conventions of movie musicals. You don't have book scenes that then stop and then you start a song and then you go back to book scenes. It's much more interwoven, and it almost feels amazing to say for a movie musical, but the songs almost feel naturalistic. Our friends at Netflix have given us some fantastic scenes to look at and talk about, and I wanted to start with El Alligato. So this is a song that occurs very, very in the first 5 minutes of the film, very close to the top. Rita is preparing the opening argument in defense of a politician that she knows is guilty of murdering his wife. And I love this scene because it really just immerses us very quickly in the language that you use to tell the story.
¿Quién dime quién en México no los quería? Por favor, no es ningún cuento de hadas. Es una historia de amor. Vuelvo a los hechos. Violencia, amor. ¿De qué hablamos hoy y ahora? Violencia, amor. ¿De justicia que se compra? Amor. Con veredictos pagados que engordan periódicos, cuellos cortados al lado derecho, las chicas bonitas al lado izquierdo y el morbo corriendo en las calles. Con veredictos pagados, cuellos cortados, las chicas bonitas.
Paul, I would love to draw you into the conversation. I understand that this is one of the very first scenes that was shot, and I can't imagine. Did you shoot this on the street in Mexico City with all of this choreography and all this, playback to pre-records? It just seems insane to start the schedule with that.
Yeah, we were in the studio for that scene. We had built, I think, 100 meters of pavement and a few market stalls on wheels with batteries, Wi-Fi, and everything had to be movable. We knew that we wanted to feel that she's kind of in the present moment as she imagines the plea and it's kind of her everyday's life that she's going through. And the market had to be building itself while she's walking in the street. So the street was a little too short, so we knew it was like 4 back and forth in the same little piece of the street by her walking and dancing. And we had made some tests very early, having in mind that it had to be maybe a little like an opera. And on a very, very early stage, we imagined shooting this film almost only on black backgrounds. And we had done tests with this scene in mind, with just Rita, or market stall, and a little piece of pavement and a black background. It was very disappointing in a way. The film was very self-conscious when on this early stage, and we changed everything. We went back to our little photos from extensive location scouting in Mexico and decided to actually reproduce the market as realistically as we could, but with the musical in mind. And so we built those market stalls and we just built a choreography. We had to feel immersed. But you also have, in this scene, you have everything, like all of the departments are working together. You have blue backgrounds in the very end. All of the trees that you can see are added in post, or the skyline is the same. So
It's amazing. You fooled me. I felt for sure that you had been subjected to having to shoot that on the street in Mexico City at night. So it's a really remarkable scene. Juliette, I understand that since that was one of the first things that came up in the shoot, you had a lot of pressure to turn that scene around pretty quickly. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was a bit of pressure, but I guess that was the goal, starting with the hardest one. So then the whole crew is like feels relaxed because they have done the worst. So now they can go on. So the same happened to me because I was in my cutting room since like 5 minutes when my phone rang and. Jacques says, "I'm very worried. It's our last day because they had, I think, 2 days or 3 days to shoot this. 2 days, I can't remember. Anyway, it was the last day, 2 days, yeah. And they were like, wow, it was a bit of a mess. And he wanted to see the cut like right away. So yeah, I did it, but it was fun, and it was, and I think it kind of matches with Rita's the state of mind of Rita at this moment. Like she's kind of excited by her, her fantasy of what universal justice could be compared to the non-justice she's working for. So I thought, at first, when I hung up the phone, I cried, and then I decided to do it, and it was okay, and it was and it was also difficult because this I guess Clément and Camille could talk much more than me about it, but the pace, the rhythm in this, the tempo in this song goes faster and faster, and then it goes slower again, and the rhythm moves a lot. And I think as it was a bit of a mess on this first day of shooting, I didn't have any click track, so it was the first time I was cutting a musical, and I didn't have any click track, so I was it was a bit complicated, but at the end of the day, the scene works, I think.
It works so well, yeah. Clement and Camille, I would love for you to talk about. So, tell me about the process of pre-recording with the cast. Were all of the songs pre-recorded? Was any of the film was it live sung on set, or was? Tell me about the process of building those songs.
It was very empirical. It was everything. All songs had been pre-recorded before the shooting. We had playbacks. Jacques also wanted to record live versions, and after the shooting, so we worked on ADR. Is that what you say?
Yes, that you got that perfect.
We worked on ADR with the cast, so the result is a mix of everything.
It's a musical Frankenstein,
Cyril, I think that's a good point to bring you into the conversation just about that scene. What an amazing challenge to not only rebuild the environment of the street scene, which was shot on a soundstage, but you're also blending pre-record, live record, ADR, post-sung. Tell us about mixing this scene.
First, we were very concerned about this scene during post-production because it looks so challenging in many ways. It was the first song of the film, as you know. It was the first song of Rita. So she moves, she walks, she dances. There's a group of dancers, several layers of choirs, and all that in the middle of the crowd in a Mexican market. So as you know now, this scene was shot in a studio near Paris. So we had to completely recreate the soundscape of the market. We obviously used a lot of real Mexican atmospheres, but on top of that, we added layers of wild tracks, crowds recorded in studio, and ADR, as Camille said, Foley, etc. Then we had to mix, and it was almost like climbing the Everest, really. And not only because it was difficult to blend all those elements, but also because this song was like a statement, really. A statement in the storytelling, I think. A statement about Rita's character mindset at the beginning. and also how the songs would introduce the musical genre, or rather transgress it. I can say. So most of Rita's voice in that song was ADR, and we worked hard to make it as lively as possible. I even used a special tool I came up with a few years ago while working with Jacques on the French dubbed version of the Sisters Brothers. Actually, it replicates or amplifies the boom and characters movement on a static recording, adding a sense of motion. And that's it. The rest is just about work, time, and countless passes and reviews, and voila.
It's an amazing sequence and a great way to start the film. I want to pivot a little bit. Paul, one of the things that I was so struck by is the varying looks of the film. I love the sequences in the desert when we're in Manitas's hideaway. Netflix has given us a wonderful little clip from this is called "What's the Difference?" This is the first meeting between Rita and Manitas in a truck as they're driving along in the desert.
¿Qué quiere que haga? Quiero ser una mujer. No entiendo. ¿Qué no entiende? Bueno, que quiere decir físicamente mujer. Sí. ¿Quiere cambiar de vida o quiere cambiar de sexo? ¿Cuál es la diferencia?
So, Paul, I would love for you to just talk about shooting those desert sequences, the contrast in the look between, Manitas's hideaway in the desert and the rest of the film. It's just remarkable work.
In the film, you have two acts, like opera acts, that happen completely by night almost. The first act, it's urban and modern night. I think also when it's not urban, when it's in the desert, you have always these practicals in the frame, and it's a kind of dark that is very made crisp and shiny by the fact you always have a highlight for your eyes. And for me, it was very important to differentiate this first night, this first act, from the night, from the end of the movie, that had to be completely different, much more matte. And we had a discussion with Jacques that was very disturbing for me as a DP, because in the end of the film, he wanted the light to come from nowhere. That's his word. And it's really the difference between the night of the compound, for example, or from Manita's trucks, where you can see the black is really pitch and pure. And this kind of grayish world that happens in the end, that with this unrealistic light that comes from nowhere.
Cyril, I was curious for you, just the vocal performance that Carla gives as Manitas is so unique and distinctive. That voice sounds so amazing. Did you do any kind of vocal treatment for Carla when she's portraying Manitas, or were you able to kind of leave that alone?
No, the answer is really simple. Aside from the usual voice process, I use on dialogue shaping, and a touch of the trailer acoustics. Carla Sofia did everything herself, and I was really impressed by that. So I didn't do anything actually.
There's another sequence that it just stands out for me that I was very excited to talk with you about it, and it's called El Mal. This is the big fundraiser for Emilia Pérez as she starts her nonprofit. And in this Zoe Saldana has such a great song. This is a particular clip that is very exciting.
Cojo, no eres cojo de nacimiento. En tu próximo puto retraso de pago acabarás en la silla de rueda, lo sabe bien. El que perdió su mano, sé muy puntual si eres corrupto. Miren al querido Gabriel Mendoza con su nueva mujer, su nueva esposa. Muy joven, muy rubia. Rubia. Habla, esta gente habla, pero ahora lo van a pagar. Habla, esta gente habla, pero ahora lo van a pagar,
Perder a un ser amado es una tragedia. Perder sus restos es una condena. Es una condena. Es una condena.
Cyril, I would love for you to talk about, of course, you're on the Dolby podcast, so I have to ask you about Dolby Atmos. I'd love for, this is a great showcase for Dolby Atmos, this particular musical number. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I took a very pragmatic approach. That's what I do always when I'm mixing in a multi-channel or immersive format. So as Jack wasn't allergic to spatial movements, my strategy was to pan sources based on where they appear in the picture and see if it worked. And when it did, it added a lot of motion and energy. So, and yes, we on some occasions we also used object to pan the singer's voice, for example, during the musical numbers. But once again, I'm really I always follow what works.
Camille and Clément, one of the questions I had for you is, did you have to do a lot of, you wrote the songs obviously before the film was cast, but once the cast joined, how much tailoring did you have to do? How much alteration did you have to do to be able to construct the songs so that the cast could sing them?
We wrote the song before we met the cast. We definitely had to tailor the songs for Emilia, for Carla Sofia Gascon, because we imagined something, maybe it was a little naive, something more like diva-like and out there and variety and, musical way of singing. And in the end, it wouldn't have felt realistic. It needed to be more intimate. So we went towards intimacy in her singing. She's a character that starts singing. Tough guys don't dance, tough guys don't sing, and she starts singing. She's a for Jessie, it was more of a scream that we needed, and Selena was okay to go there.
Added dimension was to entrust these songs to these extraordinary actresses, so that they could embody them. And actually, they are not just extraordinary actresses; they are also extraordinary women. So they nourished our inspiration, and sometimes the pre-existing arrangements of the songs were shaped in their image.
For El Mal, we were very lucky with Zoe because Zoe just fit what we had imagined. A laser voice, steely voice, super rhythmical, super accurate. Her character is a lawyer. She's done a lot of studies. She wants to render justice. And there's a lot of things going on in her mind and a lot of things she wants to say that she can't say. So when she starts singing, it goes. So Zoe really made it possible, and she added energy, a lot of energy and a lot of rage. And that allowed us for Amal to really go for bigger arrangements, like louder and energetic and acoustic. It was originally more electronical, électronique. And Jacques told us that we could go for Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, Zoe's energy helped us find the right arrangement, actually. Yeah.
Paul, that sequence is so visually stunning. The red dress and the dramatic lighting. Tell us a little bit about the visual approach to the sequence and how you put it together.
So I think the song was written in a way, and it was a moment of the story that where Rita takes control of a lot of things in her life, but now I think the approach has been to give her control of the scene almost. And so we knew that there would be a following light on her, like she's on a stage. There was technical questions about how to succeed doing that, because she had to be everywhere in the space, and we had to give her liberty and freedom to her and the choreographer. So it had to be live tracking in a studio that's not done for that. So we found a solution, and so she had to be able to point people, and the light would follow and just expose them, expose the light, expose everything that she's denouncing in a way. And the other thing, camera-wise, was to be on the same level of energy and violence that the song and the choreography had. So the camera work had to be much more rough and a bit more crazy than on, let's say, realistic songs like Papa, for example, that I love. But when you listen to this song, you can't really imagine do anything very fancy. I don't know how it was for you, Juliette, to edit it, but we filmed it like a normal moment. So that's not a normal moment at all, the gala. And with Sasha Nasseri, the Steadicam operator that I had brought on this project because of his music video experience, we had filmed a short music video for Rosalia called Saoko. And on this movement, my late friend Valentin Petit had baptized Sasha in motion control, because we had done tests with motion control robotic arms that come from the car industry with a camera on it, and to do very rapid movement around the dancers. And Sasha, with his Steadicam, was better than the robotic arm. It was faster, it was more fun and more precise. So we just actually gave him a short length. We cut the song in, 8 pieces maybe. And we improvised something all together with this setup that took us a long time to plan, but then it was shot again in 2 days, I think. And I think there was a lot of work for the editing too, Juliette.
You think I'm being modest, but it's not that. I mean, it's just in a way I found that cutting musical scenes was in a way easier than cutting I don't know how you call the other scene, regular scenes or whatever, because it's kind of I mean they were all like as they were, we had this playback, they were all in a multicam, we did a multicam clip, and then you just pick up the best parts on the part where you are on, but you cannot improvise really. Well, they improvised while shooting, but when you cut, you cannot really improvise. So in a way it's easier, because you don't have so many ways of cutting. You take the best parts, okay, but that's the less one can do. No, take the best parts. So here,
music kind of guides you through the edit.
Yeah,
right?
The music guides you, and the camera obviously guides you. The only issues we had maybe on this scene was the extras. That because it's that big dinner with lots of people on the table, dining at the tables, and obviously they weren't all dancers. So I think for Damien, the choreographer, it was a bit of a drag, and because they were not always doing the right thing they were supposed to do. but but that was maybe our main concern, because otherwise, once again, Zoe was just perfect. Emilia was fantastic, and everything was going very well. So I just had to pick up the best parts and stick to the tempo, and that was it. And the scene is so crazy that I think once I worked with a director who told me, you can do whatever you want. The scene is so good, you will never be able to mess it up anyway. So I think it was not Jacques who told me that, but someone once told me that. So I think with this scene, it was that I could have done anything. I think it would have been good, you know.
There's a remarkable sequence that happens that I wanted to talk to you about, because it really emphasized to me that the theatricality of the emotionality of what you were doing. This is it's a wonderful clip called that Netflix gave us, called Reunion. So this is several years after the Bangkok clinic sequence and the transition, and Rita meets Emilia in London for the first time at a restaurant, and this clip is the moment when Rita realizes who Emilia actually is.
¿Y con quién andas aquí?
Con Simon.
Ah,
Él se encarga de mis asuntos en Europa.
con Simon. ¿Sabes que de hecho Simon y yo... ¿Eres tú?
Mingo.
Mierda. ¿Qué haces por acá?
Tengo mis negocios en Londres.
No te hagas pendeja. ¿Mandaste a alguien a rastrearme?
A nadie, tranquila.
No reconozco tu voz.
¿Son amigos?
So Paul, obviously, it's a very naturalistic, it's a restaurant scene, lots of stuff going on, very naturalistic lighting. And then the moment when Rita realizes who this person is, talk to us about what you did practically from a lighting standpoint. And Cyril, I want you to talk about the track, because you all just you used all the tools in your arsenal to put us in this very heightened emotional state that Rita is in. I would love for you to talk about that.
So, there's kind of a signature shot from Jacques, and that comes from, I don't know, Juliette, which film? Maybe you know. But
I think from the first one, all his movies.
Yeah, so there's a signature shot which is called La Mano, with the operator puts a black glove on his hands and kind of vignette the frame with an organic feeling. And on this film, for the first time, all the mano were not supposed to be mano. We were in the studio, everything was able to be switched on and off during the take, obviously, even the sun and the skylight. So on a lot of scenes where maybe he would have done a mano on other moments, the idea was just to switch off the world with the lights. And maybe Cyril, I'm always surprised about how the sound changes because we had obviously not this feeling on set when we were doing it. So the idea for this scene was that even the practicals, even the lighting curtain that you can see in the background had to switch off on a specific beat as Rita's fear starts to kick in, and you had to get out of this dark moment at the end of the scene, and everything had to be going back to normal, but during the takes.
This is one of those scenes where there aren't many layers, but where every detail matters, actually. As Paul said, it's really like a choreography between lighting, dialogues, music, and all other elements. And I think that's what directing and editing are about, right? Even if Juliette didn't do anything, as we all understood. But it's really about finding the rhythm between everything, lights, sound, etc. So the dialogue mostly came from the production recordings. We had to clean up all the noises like hums and make the voices obviously as pure and intimate as possible. Then there are the client's conversations, which suddenly stop when the lights switch off. And it's just an abrupt, it's a breakdown. And there was the music too, which shifts from source music to something closer to a score. And I love playing those kind of transition, when you don't know what's the status of the music. So we played with that. And then there's the silence and the fear that comes with it. Rita and Emilia are suddenly alone, but even the silent isn't as simple as it seems. It's like an organic fabric made of very muffled conversation, almost that look almost like a low-pitched wind, and with the occasional clink of glass and faint room tones.
I know I'm jumping around, but I'd like to finish our conversation at the end of the film. Obviously, with the showdown in the desert. The great irony of the movie, of course, is that Emilia ends up back where she started, in the desert, in that truly remarkable sequence of retribution. Juliette, I would love for you to talk to us about shaping that final part of the film. There's so much going on. You're juggling action, dialogue, the final musical number, and it's such a long sequence, but you're also maintaining and building tension through the whole sequence up until the end. And of course, that remarkable moment when Jesse realizes who Emilia actually is. Can you talk about your approach to balancing that sequence and keeping that tension heightened for that length of time?
Yeah, well, I think there is a very strong drive with the score that is driving us for that's a very long score that lasts since Rita decides to go and bring the money and we have this choreography also with the guys arming their guns, which is beautiful. And then Rita is in the car and she's so nervous and she's getting through the desert, etc. All this is driven by the same cue, the same score. And then there is this scene where they start singing. The light, as Paul said earlier, the light in the desert is very different from the light at the beginning. It's almost a surreal light because it's a surreal scene, because like Emilia is almost dying, but then she from kind of miracle that I'm not sure people really understand, but that like the smoke of the guns get back to the restaurant, to the place where they are in, and she swallows that smoke, which makes her alive again, which is a bit of, I don't know what Jacques had in mind that day, but anyway, that's what he was, and I'm not sure it's very understandable, but at that point we needed something really surrealistic. So with the sound as well, we did really, it helped because the cue stops and then the silence, there is silence because we feel like Emilia is almost dead and we don't hear any bullets or whatever. It's been mostly done with the work on sound, which I did a simple temp of this work on sound that we would like to then obviously finesse with the sound editing, etc. But I think the idea was already in the cut. And then there is this when Jesse understood who Emilia is, that Emilia is really Manitas, with this beautiful song that is very emotional, and there was a comment dire, a plate. It was shot in two parts. Like Emilia and Jesse were alone, and behind them there is a plate with the other guys still boom boom, but in slow motion. Sorry for the boom boom. I'm like I'm a bit in slow motion, and it's all so weird, and it's all silent. You just they are in their bubble at that time, and all this, I mean, was really created by the evolution of the sound of the score becoming the song, and then same when Emilia is put in the truck, in the trunk of the car, the sound stops as well, and then it goes back again, very very nervous, and then the car falls in the desert, and everything is all intertwined. But it's really driven by sound and music and emotion, because this is the reveal for Jessie, and for Emilia is the time where she has to confess what happened, and also the time where her second life is not going to happen, and Jessie's second life is not going to happen either. That there is going to be a bad ending. So you have to follow I just had to follow my emotions, I think, and try to put myself into their character and try to see how I would watch the other character.
It's remarkable. It's a fantastic sequence. And as you point out, a triumphant collaboration between image and sound and score and song and of course editing. I want to thank you all. You've been so generous with your time. For those of you in France, I know it's quite late. The film is just remarkable, and I thank you all. It's been such an honor to have you on the Dolby podcast today talking about it. Many thanks to Juliette, Paul, Cyril, Clement, and Camille for joining us today. And an extra special thanks to our friends at Netflix for helping put that conversation together. As I mentioned up top, Emilia Pérez is now available on Netflix in stunning Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. It's also playing in limited release in select cities. We will have links, as always, in our show notes. If you enjoyed this conversation and would like even more conversations with artists and filmmakers about how they use technology to tell their stories, be sure you are subscribed to Dolby Creator Talks. You can find links to our show on all the major podcasting platforms, including the video version on YouTube, in our show notes. Or you can simply search for Dolby wherever you get your podcasts. If you're curious to know more about the Dolby Creator Lab, head on over to dolbycreatorlab.com. There you'll find information about all of our programs. You can access the entire library of episodes of our show, and you can sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, this is Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Our producer and editor is Michael Coleman. Our executive producers are Amanda Schneider and Jack Ferry, with additional editing by Matt Nixon. And our production coordinator is Karen Marroquin. Thanks for joining us.